Five.
Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Oh, I forgot the most important part. It's another groovy day. That's because I make it that way. Da, da, da. Every morning I get up and it's a groovy day before my feet hit the ground. Then if something happens or something changes, I just think back. I started out feeling groovy. It's going to be groovy no matter what. And turns out it's pretty groovy. Let's see. Let's get the show started. As always, before I get situated and centered, I like to get myself a little more situated and centered. And let's take in a deep breath. And I want you to think about what it is that you connect to that gives you power. It could be nature, it could be God, Allah, the dude, whatever it is that you consider to give you power. Think about that, anchor it. Let's take in a deep breath. And then let that breath out with a big ah. And just let your essence flow up through your heart center, throat chakra, and right out of your speaker box out into the universe. Let's do that one more time. But this time, let's think about our dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to be, do, or have? Anchor that. Taking a deep breath. And let that breath out again with a big ah. And just let that thought flow up through your throat chakra, out of your speaker box, out into the universe. And for sure now, think about providing the opportunity to the universe to make that dream, vision, and goal come true for you. There we go. It's kind of weird starting the show without our lead-in music. I so dig our music, Jackie. And
I know. It's just like, bam, you're on. Okay.
The station moved. We're going to have to put some heat on Cam to get him figure that out, because I got it. That's like my prep.
I know. It's like gets your heart racing the way at the tempo it should be, right?
How are you, my friend? How's things going in Speak Feed Weed Land with the chillins?
The chillins. Yeah, they are chilling this summer. Lots of kids are chilling. I think because last summer they were home with their families. This summer they're out with their families.
Out. History. I'm out of
here.
They're
out and they are doing fun things, and that's great. And I encourage that. We are getting ready because some school districts are heading back in August to school, and hopefully we'll get those kiddos back in actual classrooms and start learning and socializing again as they need to. So we've got classes lined up and ready for enrollment for the fall. And and we're excited because we get to see some of our students coming back after a little bit of a break. And, we've got students from all over the world now that are part of our membership. And so it's great to be able to bring these kids together. They're kind of forming pen pal like relationships in our classes, which is a nice byproduct. We didn't plan on that necessarily, but now we've got, remember pen pals? Oh, maybe people don't remember what pen pals are. Where you'd actually find somebody, maybe you'd meet somebody at summer camp or whatever, and then you'd promise that you're going to write letters every week. And some cases you do. In most cases, if you're like me, then you kind of get out of the habit quickly. And
maybe we should come up with a reframe of pen pals. What could we say that would be a little more hip, a little more today, a little more now?
I don't know. I think Facebook's doing a pretty good job taking place with pen pals.
Facebook, there you go. That's it.
I mean, it's like that's how my high school plans all the reunions now. Is they just, they have a Facebook group for our year of graduation, and they just, get everybody together and let everybody know when our next reunion is. So it works. Anyhow.
And that was your 20th, nice, right?
That was your 20th? No.
I was going to go 10. I was going to
I'm working on my 40th now.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. You can go there, and any links that we talk about, our guest today's link is right there, and you can go and check out her website. She has pretty cool course that she is running, and you can check that out because we're going to give you some great information today on the show. While you're on the website, you can sign up for the newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter every week, and it highlights who's been on the show and who's coming on the show, and a blog post by Jackie about who was on the show and what we talked about. So it's a way to stay up to date with all things life mastery. Jackie's book is there. My book is there. Follow the links, get them, read them, love them, and leave us some feedback, what you think about them. It's pretty cool. I enjoyed writing my book, although it was quite a process. And I know Jackie did too. Jackie wrote her book, and then I thought, if she can do that, I could do that. So I had to do that. So
The truth is,
how,
anybody can do it, and everybody
That's true.
should do it. Everybody should
So
get their message.
we'll
out.
put a little plug in for my girlfriend, Coach Debbie. If you have a book in you, and just like Jackie said, everybody has a book in them, check out Coach Debbie. You can find her link on my Facebook page, and she will help get that book that's in you
Yay,
out of
Coach
you
Debbie.
so you can share it. So check that out. What else are we missing? Sign up for the newsletter, buy our books, check out our books. And that's it. Take it away, Jackie. You
Yes, I am delighted to welcome Konni with a K. If any of you are wondering what KWAK is on her video name, it's Konni with a K. And Konni Harrison is her given name. And she is multi-talented. She has over 30 years experience in investor relations, donor relations, and individual financial education. I need all of those. Konni started owning successful businesses as a teenager. Wow. And she's earned a degree in marketing and finance. So this woman is the money woman you want to talk to. Konni also offers a course that you could be a part of called Anxiety to Action: How to Start the Estate Planning Conversation with Your Family. Sometimes can be quite awkward. She provides a 3-step process to give you the tools to set that stage for a positive interaction with your family. Konni also is a great person. On the side of all of that, she has a dog named Dakota, and they are a nationally registered Pet Partners Animal Therapy team. Their job mainly is to make people smile, which is sweet. And she also does a lot of philanthropic work with nonprofits, and she's actually an ambassador for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And Konni gives 10% of what she makes on those courses to a nonprofit of her choice, and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation happens to be one of those. Wow. So we have a lot that we can talk with Konni about today, and let's just get that started. So hello, Konni.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me. Is this what we do? Is this part of the starting process?
Yeah, sort of. Oh, it's sort of our online applause.
It's a Toastmaster thing, because if you get everybody clapping,
each other out. Yeah, you can't hear it. It gets canceled out. So this way we get to visually give you props.
It's actually, I think it's ASL for applause.
It is. It is. That's how deaf people applaud. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So welcome aboard the crazy train of Life Mastery Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How fun. How fun.
Well, and the first thing, because there's so many wonderful things about you, I think I would like to start by asking, what is one thing you feel like our audience needs to know about you so that everything else we learn about you is going to make sense?
Overachiever? No.
Yeah.
No. I think, well, I'll start that with a little story. The buzzword around is know your purpose, know your why, right? I mean, so everybody's scrambling going, I have no bloody idea what my why or my purpose really is, right? So I've got it down, right? I studied, I looked at I looked at my history, all of these things, and I had it down. And it was, about educating people and this and that. And then I went to another event because, of course, events are all the rage as well, right? So I go to another event and they say, oh, no, that's not your purpose. And I'm going, oh, good Lord. Okay, let's start over because I'm going to get this down, right? So it has to be just 3 one words. And I'm going, okay. So as I looked at my history, as I looked at my personality, and I looked at all of the people that I have come in contact with, I have been told that one of my gifts is to make things simple. Anything financially oriented in the investment space, in the financial space, even in the real estate space on occasion, my gift is to keep things very simple. I said, okay, well, that's one. My purpose, I make things simple for people. And so, well, what else do you do? Well, I love to connect people. I am sending people introductions and solving problems in that regard. I love it. And I love when that spark happens between the two people that you introduced. So, okay. So I connect, I provide connections. Okay, that's 2. And I'm thinking, I need a third. And I thought, well, what is something that I want that matters to me in my heart? And that's security. So security can come about in many different forms. So my purpose, after having a completely different purpose for months, is to provide connections, simplicity, and security in your life. So
that's very cool.
I think, I like it. It seems to be working, but that's when you get to my core, that is what I'm all about, whether it's connecting people.
You know what, Konni? I think all 3 of us were cut from the same rug.
You all have the same purpose. I don't have my very own purpose. I don't like that.
Pretty similar. I wouldn't say it's the same, but it's very similar. Very, very similar. So
well,
no wonder that we're all here today.
Even if our purpose was all the same, we do it differently, right?
Yep.
Because we bring our own talents and skills to the table. So we
right.
can have the same purpose, but we achieve that purpose differently.
We use different vehicles. I heard
Absolutely.
that. And I thought, that'll work for me. I'm using
That's
different
right.
vehicles to bring my purpose to others. So, and I care, you can't fake that ever. So,
Right.
So Dakota,
did you
and I
come
will
from
take
entrepreneurial parents that encouraged you to be an entrepreneur in your teenage years?
Well, I had a snow plowing company when I turned 16. So, and my father,
Wow.
right,
So,
right.
Some teenagers are just happy to drive a beat up old car, but you're,
Yeah.
but you're driving a snowplow. That's amazing.
So my father, was a trader down on the options exchange for 100 years. And they used to have goofy raffles and things like that. Well, he won a bright yellow Jeep CJ5. Okay. And what is he going to do with this thing? Well, I was 15 at the time. So he, of course, brings this home, and he's not going to just give me the car, right? That's not what he wants to do. Now, my friends may think very differently back then, but that's a different story altogether. So he brings this car home and he says, okay, we need to do something with it. And I'm going, we're taking the top down and we're driving around. What do you mean we got to do something with it? So we bought a plow, a bright yellow plow on the front of this bright yellow Jeep. And it had, my father was a pretty good artist. So he painted a penguin, which was his favorite animal, a penguin with a snow shovel and a big pile of snow. And it said K&C plowing for Konni and Clyde. So in the mornings before I would go to school, I would be, the black lab was in the passenger seat, doors were off the Jeep, and off I go and plow a lot of the neighbors' driveways. And I grew up in a very tight-knit subdivision. So, I just went around and plowed everybody out and went through 46 clutches and, had to figure out how to, oh yeah. But it was fun, and everybody loved to see that bright yellow Jeep coming down the road when they couldn't get out. So it was fun. So that was my
very
first
cool story.
My gosh,
So
how
you
much
caught
did
the
you get
bug.
paid for doing that?
Oh, probably $5 a driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, granted, maybe your 20-year high school reunion, I'm a little further down the line than 20, so we're going back a decade or three-ish,
Yeah.
but it was great. I loved it. Had an absolute ball.
So that's where you caught the entrepreneurial bug and it just stayed with you. I think for me, it was junior achievement where I caught that bug, as a young adult. And oh my gosh, that just set me up for the rest of my life.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it starts. So then how did you get into finance? Well, obviously your dad was a trader, and so then you moved on to trading. Is that the story?
Well, I was, after the plowing company, while in college, I met my husband and we got married. And I wanted my own hunter jumper barn. I was very big into the horse shows when I was younger. So I had my own facility in a town called Barrington Hills here. And when my mother passed away, she was very young, very unexpectedly, and I did not handle it well. I gotta tell you, I did not do that well at all. And I ended up leaving my marriage, Illinois, and I bolted and I started with the thoroughbreds, with the race horses. So I would exercise them in the morning, and that circuit brought me back to Illinois briefly, and my father was partners with Jimmy Rogers and said, you need to get your licenses. This is a game changer. So in 1999, I got my Series 7 and my Series 63, and I went around to brokerage firms and custodians and people and sold them on this new concept, because back then you couldn't buy oil unless you traded it on the futures exchanges, right, or cotton or any of that. So we were bringing a new asset class into the fold, and we had a ball, an absolute ball. And I was still I told them, I said, I am not staying in one place. I said, I am following the thoroughbreds all over the country, and I'm galloping in the morning, and I'll do investments in the afternoon. So I did that for a very long time. That's how I got into the financial space.
You talked about losing your mother, and that was the worst thing I've ever experienced, was losing my dad. And but maybe we should move on to that discussion. There was no plan.
Right.
There was no plan, and then the fisticuffs came out with all the siblings, and I just walked away. I just, I didn't need it. But this is a big deal. And, Jackie opened up the show talking about having that conversation with your family. But Konni, don't you first have to have that conversation with yourself?
Well, I love how you said that, because you don't have access to the course, right? So you haven't even seen it. But the very first thing that I talk about is we're going back to the very beginning, your why. Why do you want to have this conversation with your family? And it goes through all kinds of exercises in that first step of that 3-step process to get to the core of why you want to do this. And then, being the leader, since you are starting the conversation, how do you lead, and what does a leader mean? And a leader is not, a leader is not somebody that goes, follow me, right? That's not what it's about. It's taking care of the people that you care about. That's what being a leader is. You can be a leader in a multitude of scenarios with that mindset, and with your family, it's but you gotta figure out, and you gotta, even if it's as simple as, mom's getting ready to go into an assisted living, and we don't know how, she's starting to have some dementia issues. We need to get together as a family and, at least have the conversation. And there's a multitude of reasons why people start that conversation. So I just help you guide through that.
So let's figure out the timing. That scenario you just described might be a little too late, or getting borderline too late? When is the time? I mean, we have so many years on this planet. When is that time that you need to start thinking about this?
Most people, okay, that I have found, start that conversation with a trigger. So a friend's sister passed away, a friend's parent passed away, and then they're start going, oh God, you know, we got to do
Or a mild
something.
stroke. A mild stroke might strike.
Right. Absolutely. I had one of those.
Facing your own mortality. Yeah.
Right. You know, there could be a multitude of reasons, but, you know, I found that there's usually a trigger because people tend to, again, from what I've found, people tend to think that they can do it later and later and later because nobody wants to have that conversation. Nobody wants to talk about something happening to mom and dad. Nobody wants to talk about something happening to them. They just don't want to do it. So they put it off and put it off, and then something happens and then everybody's scrambling, right? So that's the time to do it is before you actually need a power of attorney in place, so somebody else is running the show. You know,
my kids are already fighting over my house and I'm not even gone yet.
Well, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, you know, it's so disheartening because most people, and I put this course up because being the first person to lose a parent, whenever anybody else would lose somebody that they loved, they all came to me and said, how in the world do you get through this? I mean, not just from the emotional and the mental and, you know, how do you navigate that business process? So, so I was the go-to person. And of course I would help them in every way I can. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm on Tony Robbins' mastermind platform. That's where the course is currently housed. And I said, well, what if I can help people not go through the heartbreak and the infighting and the backstabbing? So I put the course up, you know, to try and get people to, and they can take it anonymously. You don't, you know, you just take the course at your own time. But, you know, seeing as how my forte tended to be, you know, talk to me, let's walk through it. There's also there's another course on there that has the 3-step process plus a personal consult with me via Zoom, so we can get down to their, you know, their nitty gritty and what they're really struggling with. So, you know, my advice is always just get started. It doesn't all have to be done in a week from Tuesday. Just get started.
It can change too, right? It can evolve, but at least you have that groundwork.
Right. And, you know, part of getting started is keeping those documents and those wishes updated. Right. Yeah. So anytime a wish change or something changes, or, you know, Susie Snowflake makes mom mad because she did X, Y, and Z. Now, well, and that happens a lot, right? You see these documents changing every 4 minutes. You know, some people are really, you know, they're into that. So, you know, and of course the attorneys are going, okay, deep breath. We can do the family dynamic. So, you know, so I'm kind of a go-between for the estate attorneys as well. So, you know, just get started.
It sounds like then that just one person in the family should not take this course, but that everybody should be taking this course. Is that right? I mean, because otherwise you've got one person that knows now, they're empowered because they've taken your course, and then they start to talk with the family, and it sounds like they're trying to just take over everything. And that seems like that could cause some separation, right? So would it behoove someone who's taken your course to encourage other family members to take it as well, so that they're all understanding that no one's trying to take charge, they're just trying to be organized?
Right. Well, and there's the thing with that too, because I don't focus on the documents, right? I'm all about the communication aspect. So the last piece, that final step of that 3-step process is to take and know your audience. That's what it's called. So as you gather the family together, you know, after we've gone through the first 2 steps, that final step is to do a realistic assessment of your family. You know, what are their triggers? They're your family. You grew up with them. Is there somebody that absolutely does not want to talk about death? How do you change your narrative for that? There's the brother-in-law that thinks he knows everything and wants to take over. And how do you change your narrative to do that? So it's very, in changing the narrative, and I really like the real time aspect of communication and providing the tools and the kind of the roadmap to be able to adjust those narratives as you're in the middle of that discussion. So the objective of the whole course is to make your family members feel comfortable and that you're being transparent by trying to get this through, because the person that's leading the charge, so to speak, may not be the executor in the will. It may be somebody completely different. So if that, and it doesn't have to be a warm and fuzzy, because it's a difficult conversation. But if you start to build transparency, if you start to build the trust, and if everybody really participates, then, it's going to be, because the ultimate goal is to have your family understand what the wishes are of the person that you're discussing, whether it's mom, whether it's dad, whether it's grandma, it doesn't matter, but it's what they want. It's not what we think that they should have or do or distribute. It's what they want. And that initial conversation gets people on board with what those family members really want their wishes to be. So, that's the key there. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it, I gotta say.
Well, and you know what? In recent events with Britney Spears, for instance, where she's under this conservatorship, under the thumb, so she says, of her father, it indicates really clearly that things can turn south without that open communication, right? And that maybe we don't know that there's some real problems happening if the conversations aren't happening.
Right.
So I want to jump back to something you said, that you're not necessarily helping with the legal paperwork of all of this. You're just facilitating the conversation with the people involved in it. So you're acting as sort of this liaison in a way to say, this is, okay, guys, what do we want here? Now let's get that in writing, so that everybody's clear with that. Yeah. And I didn't realize until this moment how really valuable that is. It's not just getting everything on paper, but it's making sure everybody's aware of it, okay with it, and supportive of the person who's likely to pass away first.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. And, and luckily, I've coming from the investment space, right. And being licensed for, 16, 17 years, whatever that was, I'm very aware of compliance and laws and what we can do and what we can't do and what we can say and what we can't say, what's fightable, what's not fightable. So, you want your attorneys, and they have resources online to create your own will at no cost. So there's all kinds of options for people out there. But working with the estate attorneys, that's helpful because they do their thing. They do the documents, let me deal with the family dynamics. Let me help, make everybody understand and feel comfortable with what is happening. Because transparency is the key, because 6 months after the fact, when everybody's, fighting and things aren't documented and it's a complete train wreck, because you don't want to lose the rest of your family, right? I mean,
it happens so often.
Yes. Yes. And my own personal story, when my mother passed away, my parents had been divorced. She passed away in December. My parents' divorce was final in February, the year she died. And again, I did not handle it well. I had a great time. Don't get me wrong. I made such great bad decisions. I've got stories forever, right? But an attorney friend of mine approached me and said, Konni, you need to know something. And I'm like, really? What? And he said, well, your father is going after your inheritance. I'm an only child. My father was toying with the idea of suing me for my inheritance. And
Wow.
him and mom had been divorced almost a year. So it was, it got ugly. So that was my first introduction into the wonderful family dynamics of wills, trusts, passing away, and divorces all meshed into one.
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
thrown into the fire right out of the gate.
Yeah.
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 So it was not pleasant. It was not pleasant.
So you talk about your course. Your course, obviously, you consult people too, but you have this course, and you mentioned that there's 3 steps. And I think we talked about the first step a little bit, which was get organized, right? Get everything together. Give us some insight as to what those other 2 steps are.
So the first step is all about your why and why you're doing this.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. And so it talks about your circumstances right now. What were the triggers? Who are we having this discussion on behalf of? The second step is going back to the simplicity piece of my gift. Thank you. But so all of these terms, everybody thinks that they know or should know. So they don't look up, the durable power of attorney, and what's the difference between a durable power of attorney and a healthcare proxy, and what does probate mean, and all of these things. Okay, so the first part of that is your knowledge base. So so I put pages of these terms in a way that actually makes sense, and you can understand them, and you can explain them back, because it's very layman's terms and it's short. We don't go 3 paragraphs on what a will means. That's not going to help anybody. Which is how I've done my career when I've been talking to as people's financial advocates. And then we do the status check. Where are we at? To your point, Todd, where are we starting? What needs to be addressed, what doesn't need to be addressed, that kind of thing. That third step is your family assessment. And I give you all the tools and all the things that you really need to think about to do an honest family assessment, and what that looks like, and how to adjust that narrative, and how to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, because you have different vocabulary and different narratives for different people that you're talking to in that room or on that Zoom call, or whatever the scenario is. Because you don't want to talk to somebody that doesn't want to deal with this at all, the same way that you talk to somebody who's all in, let's do this, then you've got your fixer person, right? We can get this done. I have to be a fixer person, but but that's so it takes all of that into consideration. And then the creme de la creme is if somebody wants to actually get on a Zoom call with me, and we can discuss their specific scenarios as well. And that way we can get to the nitty gritty, and that they have real-time questions. They can say, okay, well, this is what I run into, with my brother, how do I handle that? So we walk through those, cool. Not necessarily role playing, but certainly give him some tools to keep that same vibe throughout the conversation.
Yeah.
If at all possible. So, so we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Cool.
It's
so
fun.
what is the psychology then behind the troubles that do emerge from a death in the family? Because if you work with individuals and families, maybe you've discovered some reason that when a family member dies, everybody's just like, oh, that's mine, or I deserve this, or he or she wanted me to have this. Why does that begin? What is the competition aspect of that mindset that clicks in, or that triggers, like you say?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, because a lot of times what you'll hear after the fact is, well, I was talking to mom and she said that I could have this.
Right.
But it's not documented. Right. And then somebody else says, well, no, she said that I could have that. So then there's that. So to avoid that aspect of it.
So the first thing is that some people are actually being they're saying, well, mom said, they're not lying necessarily, but
Correct.
there's contradiction because maybe mom said
Right.
something similar to someone else, or it was misinterpreted or whatever. Okay.
Which
So
means
that's
the
one reason.
executor is either going to drink heavily or pull all of their hair out as they're trying to get through all of this, right?
Right.
Because the executor is trying to keep everybody, the executor is trying to do what he's supposed to do, which is handle the distribution of assets, right? To the heirs. Well, when the heirs are all fighting, it's a nightmare. But the other thing that I found is people don't know what to do, right? When they lose somebody that they really love, it's all of a sudden their foundation is rocked, their world has changed, their sense of normalcy has changed. So there's with that unsure and that insecurity, okay, it's fear-based, right?
Well,
so
and it's gotta be overwhelming
yes.
if there's been no plan. Now all of a sudden, all of this stuff needs to be dealt with.
Well, and isn't it true too that there's a lot of sentimentality there too, that mom's gone, well, but I need something to remember her.
Yeah.
So I really think I should have the piano. Or I really think,
Right.
you know, I should get the house in the country or whatever, because mom and I spent time. So maybe that part of that confusion and the mourning that happens is that the sentimentality that you want to have something that belonged to this person, continue feeling close to them or connected to them.
Right, absolutely. And there's different pieces of that, and those connections are different for every member of the family, you know. So you've got those pieces, and they're not going to go through. Most people that leave wills, or if everything's going in a trust, or you know, something along those lines, they don't write down who they want their silver teaspoon to go to, right?
All the little details.
So by having a conversation before, or you know, it was I digress just a second. So I was doing another interview. I'm sorry, you're not my only ones. I know. I know. Bad.
You're fine.
But I was talking to this gentleman, you know, when we were doing a Zoom interview, and he said, you know, well, can't you put together something for the executors that are going through all this drama and trauma on the back end after somebody dies? And I said, well, wouldn't that be nice if there was a roadmap that, you know, could tell you exactly what you need to do? I said,
have a seance.
Well, and that won't even work, because people will hear different things, right, Todd? So, you know, so I thought about it, and I thought, no, I'm trying to figure out a way to help people that are starting to go through this, how they can mitigate that and keep the family together. And, you know, because everybody's afraid, everybody has their own perception, right? They all have their own blinkers on about what is supposed to happen and who is supposed to get what, and, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, and your average bear, which is what I kind of consider myself and us, right? Just your average people, you know, we think that, you know, well, we're the only ones that are going through this. There's nobody else that are going through this, right? Well, I dug into celebrity stories. They are hilarious. I give a whole bunch of examples in my course about, you know, a celebrity that told their housekeeper that they could have the house, and, you know, it wasn't documented. So they fought about it in court for 5 years. You know, another one forgot to add one of his kids, you know. I mean, it's just, the stories are hilarious. So anybody out there that thinks that they're the only ones that are either going through, you know, a really difficult time starting the conversation, or having a really difficult time after one passes, you're not alone, and you don't have to do it alone. That's you know, that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So people feel connected to their families, to the process, you know, to each other, to me, you know, whatever they need to feel connected to at the time, you know, I try to help provide that as best I can and have it make sense.
Well, and besides, every family is going to be different, right? So even if the executor had this roadmap of what he or she was supposed to do or say, it's not going to apply to every situation because
Right.
every family dynamic is different.
Correct.
And so, yeah, I
Correct.
see how that would be hard.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears here for just a little bit because I want to know about Dakota and what you and Dakota have done together.
She's currently sleeping. She's a love. I rescued her when she was 8 weeks old. I had lost my 2 dogs the summer before. And so I was looking for a shepherd mix because they and I seem to get along the best. And I went to, there was a rescue place I was living on the East Coast. There was a shelter in Westchester, New York. And I had a little bit of an inn. So they let me come. Their puppies were going to be up for adoption on Thursday. And they said, Connie, come in on Wednesday. You can pick the puppy that you want, before they're released to the general public. I said, okay, great. So litter of 9. Have you ever tried to pick a puppy out of 9?
Wow.
Really? But
Yeah.
she kept picking me. So I thought, okay, you're going to sit in my lap while your buddies are playing. And I'm a firm believer that animals that come into your life definitely pick you. You have nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever connection there is, whatever you believe, they pick you. And that was in, what year was that? January of 2018. Well, I had left. I was recruited by a firm in Chicago to move back to this area. So, okay, I've got a job. I'm moving back to Chicago. I'm going home. So she was probably 6 months old at the time. And I thought, well, I'm driving all the way across 90. I'm going to go to Niagara Falls. I've never seen Niagara Falls, right? So off I go. I get lost. Everybody who knows me knows that I get lost in a paper bag. I can go coast to coast, but don't put me in a town. Otherwise, I'm going to call you every 5 minutes and say, well, now I'm by a big road. Exactly. But we stopped at Niagara Falls and she was young. I mean, she was 6 months old. She didn't bat an eye. I mean, there's tons of noise. There's hundreds of people. There's, there's trains and boats and radios and announcements. And she just kind of was going, all right, well, whatever. The only thing she got upset about was she went to puppy play bounce at a goose and the Canadian goose didn't move. And she thought, and ran right behind me. But that's the only thing. Now, before we're getting ready to get back onto the road, I have to go to the bathroom, right? I'm not getting back on 90 without, stop. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave her in the car because I don't, just not going to happen, right? Stubborn. So there's this huge gift shop that's like 3 floors and all of the touristy stuff. Well, I just march her right into the gift shop and right straight back to the bathrooms. And she could have cared less, She didn't get scared. She didn't look at anything. So we get into the bathroom. There's, of course, a line around the corner. And the only thing she wouldn't do was go into one of the little single stalls. So I had to wait for the handicap stall so she could fit in there with me. But I was thinking after I got back in the car, there's something fairly special about a 6-month-old puppy that gets completely uprooted. And, there's got to be, right. So a friend of mine, her daughter was going to college and she worked with service dogs. So service dogs are the dogs that help, the blind people and the handicapped people and people in wheelchairs. So she started working with Dakota in probably the fall of 2018. And she goes, she's doing everything. So she just loves to just relax and read and, take what other people are doing. And she just adapts. I mean, you can pull on her ears, you can pull on her legs, you can pull on her tail. And she's like, all right, would you just pet my belly and leave it alone? She's had, 15 kids surrounding her at one time.
Right.
And she just lays there, toes up, so they can all play with her and pet her and things like that. She's very mellow. She makes a difference in people's lives. And I am, we got registered with Pet Partners in October of 2019. So we started going to, schools and hospitals and events and things along those lines. And then of course, COVID hit. And so that was fairly inconvenient, but we started volunteering. I volunteer with Soul Harbor Ranch locally here in Barrington, Illinois. And the kids wanted to see her. So I've got Zoom on my phone and I'm trying to chase the dog around the house, who has no idea why I'm following her with a phone. So, I mean, she's funny. And then, after the third week of doing this, we did it every Wednesday, I think. She'd be sleeping and the kids would go, "Can you please wake Dakota up?" And I'm going,
Kids will be kids. They're the only.
Absolutely. So, so she's a pretty special egg. I'm very fortunate to have her and to be able to go and make so many people just feel better about the situation they're in, whether it's, a kid that's afraid of dogs and all of a sudden she's wrapped around Dakota to, somebody in a hospital bed that doesn't know if they'll ever walk again.
Makes a huge difference.
It matters. She makes a huge difference. I'm very, very fortunate.
So
So thank you for asking. Thank you.
Well, I think,
of course.
Jackie, we had a guest on that did the same thing, only with vets. And am I remembering it correctly?
With what? Oh, with veterans?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he
Yes.
claimed it was making a huge difference, especially with the the suicide rate.
Yeah, it was specifically to help vets to choose not to commit suicide. So
Right.
it was vets that
It's
were
huge.
depressed and things like that.
Animals have a way of communicating with people on a level that, it's totally unknown. It's a mystery, but it is a real deal.
It is a real deal. And we have, I got our special accreditations to work with veterans. And we also just got our accreditation to work with crisis response. So we did our first crisis response with, a couple of college kids died in a car accident. So, that's part of the crisis response is to go and, and be around those people. And
that's such great work, Konni. That's really cool.
Yeah, a
That
friend
makes
of
a
mine,
difference, right?
a friend of mine who does something similar, she actually went to Florida after the collapse of the apartment or the condo.
Oh,
building,
wow.
and just not to necessarily sniff out survivors,
there.
but just to be there to comfort people,
people.
family members that were still waiting to hear and that kind of thing. And it's dogs are just so amazing, aren't they? They are here for very special purposes.
Absolutely.
And for you to find one that has very special skills that can do even more than the average wonderful dog can do is pretty cool.
You're absolutely right. The dog picked you because you had a mission, and she
Absolutely.
needed help from you fulfilling her purpose, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Konni, we only have about 5 minutes left. It's been such a joy to have you. I know it goes so fast, doesn't it? But Jackie got to change the subject a little bit, so I'm gonna flip a switch. As an amateur trader, and I know you like to keep it simple. Give us some of your 1-2 best advice. Keep it simple for those that are trading out there. Pretty crazy times, right?
So they're day trading? Is that what they're doing? Is that
we're just playing around. More and more people, especially the younger groups, are getting involved with Robinhood and trying to cash in on Bitcoin and make that killing that they read about and hear about. But what is the reality of that? I guess that would be a good way to put it.
If you're not comfortable with what you're investing in, don't do it. Just period. It doesn't matter, because all of the research in the world that you do, you're going to find, stay away from it. And then you're going to find, it's the latest and greatest. So if you're not comfortable and have your own set of ideas and kind of parameters and goals with a given investment. Crypto is a perfect example. People either love crypto or they hate it, and so if you're comfortable with it, then by all means, do your research, do your homework, go for it. If you're not comfortable with crypto, do not let Fred down the street tell you that you have to get involved in crypto, because that fear in your belly, and this suitability, of course, is a big thing, but that fear in your belly is not going to be, even if you double your money in a week and a half, it's not going to be worth the anxiety. It's just not.
Yeah, it can be a crazy ride sometimes.
It absolutely can be. And if you're talking about investments that are outside of the box, and you're talking about getting involved in, I don't know, and the latest and greatest commercial real estate. Well, that's fine, but listen more than you talk. And if the people that are trying to sell you on a new idea or a joint venture, if they're not listening to you, thank you very much. Find somebody, find the investment community that will listen to you and align with short-term, quick turnaround, quick buck, long-term. I believe in the project, which is it going to be? Is it going to be Microsoft or is it going to be Apple? Two very different mindsets back when they first came out. So, I think that people forget about aligning their head, heart with what they're getting into.
That's very cool advice. I really like that. Well, my friend, we have about 3 minutes left. Thank you so much for showing up as you today with your words of wisdom and your direction. Is there anything that we missed? Is there one last parting shot you might have for our listeners?
My next project, Jackie's going to cringe, but my next project, I had a stroke in 2009. My next project is, which will not start till the fall, so do not email and call me every 3 minutes. But my next project is to teach in real time stroke survivors how to talk to their supporters, their family, because everything changed and there's nothing out there to help anybody talk directly to their supporters. They've got all kinds of information for the survivors. They've got all kinds of information for the caregivers. Nobody wants to bridge that gap. So again, we're talking about family and family staying together, because 85% of the time it's a family member that's helping when a stroke survivor comes home. But there's being a stroke survivor, knowing what my frame of mind was, what the supporters' frame of mind was, there's a way to bridge that, talk about it, and have it not be in tears every time the supporter leaves the house or you go to bed.
Definitely a wake-up call. Definitely a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
Here, think about this.
Yeah.
Oh, Konni, thanks so much. I hope you'll come back. I think there's a lot more we can talk about, and thank you again. Jackie, any takeaways? Look at that big smile. At least I know you had fun today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Konni. I've talked with Konni a few times and we always have fun together. I would have one last question for you, which is, who needs to take your course? Really quickly, who should take your course?
Anybody that has parents that are making a transition, or anybody that has a blended family, cool. Steps and that kind of thing, because that can be really challenging on the other side. And if you're in the middle of it, reach out to me. Let's see if I can at least help you navigate through that process as well. But
tell us your website. What's your website?
Yeah. We'll get your website listed. Go ahead and tell them what it is right now.
KMHunlimited.com.
KMHunlimited.com. Go check it out.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks again, Konni. Thanks, Jackie, for showing up. Both of you as you. It was a really cool show. And lastly, tell your friends about the show. Tell a friend. It's not telephone anymore. Tell a friend, and we would love to have them involved in the Life Mastery family. Lastly, check out Konni, and please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. See you next week.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye
Bye,
for now.
everybody.